Hello, and welcome to the video presentation of The Journey to Adulthood, What Parents Need to Know. This video is presented to you by the Utah Parent Center. The Journey to Adulthood is a national curriculum developed to help parents understand how to help their child learn about puberty and also be more prepared for adulthood. My name is Michelle Murphy, and I'm a parent consultant here at the Utah Parent Center. As a parent of an adolescent with Asperger's and a preschooler, I know firsthand the importance and also some of the challenges involved with preparing your child for puberty and adulthood. I have found that with my own child, having quality information and training has helped me to feel more prepared and confident to have these sometimes challenging conversations with my child. I hope that this video will also help you to feel more prepared and also more confident as a parent as you begin to discuss this very important information with your child. I wanted to start out by saying that we understand that every family has its own values and cultures. Discussions with your child about puberty should take place within the context of your family's own values and cultural beliefs. It is up to you as a parent to decide how you will share this information with your child. This video provides basic information and strategies to help you begin a discussion about this important topic with your son or daughter. Growing up is hard to do. There are many physical and emotional changes youth will experience while growing up. Youth need to be prepared not just for the personal changes, but also for society's expectations regarding the appropriate behavior of adults. Individual family cultures may also have new expectations of young adults. It may, for example, be cute when a 3-year-old runs up and hugs everyone. When that same child is 17, however, and is still doing that, it becomes socially unacceptable. Your child must gain new or different social skills as their relationships change. Puberty often serves as a wake-up call for parents, reminding them that their child is beginning their journey to adulthood. For youth without disabilities, these skills may be acquired by observation and by trial and error. Youth with disabilities, however, may require a more structured approach. They may, for example, need information presented many times in different formats. They may also need the opportunity to practice new skills in different settings. By preparing your youth for adolescence and helping them develop the skills and adult needs, you are also preparing them for their lives as adults. Preparing youth for the physical changes of puberty is an important step in the process. The questions you see on the screen came from 5th and 6th graders in the New York Public Schools, as reported in a 2005 Parent Brief on Puberty. It was prepared by the Sexuality Information and Education Council of the United States. Questions like, "Does it hurt?" and "Am I normal?" are common questions parents may have about puberty. Young people will probably notice that their bodies are changing before their families will, which will make it even more important for you as the parent to address these issues early. Puberty can be a confusing time for youth. As a parent, you should maintain a positive attitude and be straightforward when answering your child's questions. Doing so can relieve anxiety and embarrassment for both you and your child. It is also a great idea to tell your child that they can bring their questions to other appropriate individuals, such as a trusted aunt, an older sibling, or a doctor. Let your child know that other children are usually not the best source of information. The arrival of puberty varies for individuals. In the general population, puberty for girls takes place between the ages of 8.5 and 13 years old. For boys, on average, it takes place between the ages of 9 and 14 years old. The presence of a disability may affect when puberty arrives. Many parents assume that their child with a disability will go through puberty at the same time or maybe even start later than their peers. Research, however, has shown that some youth with disabilities may actually start puberty younger than their non-disabled peers. One study done in 2002 by Worley found that for youth with cerebral palsy, puberty generally begins earlier and ends later than it does in peers without cerebral palsy. Another study done in 2006 by Murphy and Roy Ellis showed that youth with intellectual and other learning disabilities were 20 times more likely than their peers to experience early puberty changes. With this in mind, parents and care providers of youth with these and other disabilities will need to begin educating their sons and daughters earlier than they might have anticipated. This chart represents a timeline for the physical changes associated with puberty for girls and illustrates when the changes occur in relation to each other. Development generally occurs in a set order. When the changes begin and how quickly they occur vary from person to person. For girls, the physical changes associated with puberty are directed primarily by the pituitary gland. It stimulates the ovaries to produce more of the hormone estrogen and progesterone. The increase of hormones initiates the developmental step illustrated in the chart on this slide. As a parent, it is good to know what is coming so you can discuss in advance what will be happening. This chart represents a timeline for the physical changes associated with puberty for boys and illustrates when the changes occur in relation to each other. Development generally occurs in a set order. The onset of puberty for boys will vary for each individual. For boys, the physical changes associated with puberty are directed primarily by the pituitary gland. It stimulates the testes to produce more of the hormone testosterone. The increase of hormones initiates the developmental steps illustrated on the chart. Another important thing for parents to be aware of is the role of nutrition and exercise. It is vital that teens get proper nutrition and exercise during puberty and adolescence. The phenomenal growth that occurs in the teenage bodies and brains is second only to that of infants in the first year of life. Total nutrient needs are higher during adolescence than at any other time during the life cycle. The concepts of public and private behavior are also vital for youth with disabilities to understand. Both personal safety and appropriate behaviors are grounded in the understanding of what is appropriate to share in public and what should remain private. It is important to provide very clear guidance on public and private body parts. This discussion should also include locations, behaviors, and touch, including appropriate hugging. Parents may also need to help youth understand appropriate settings for discussions about puberty or private parts. Cultural understanding of modesty and concepts of public and private can help youth avoid making serious social errors. Youth can begin a discussion about public and private body parts by explaining that private parts of the body are those covered by a swimsuit or underwear. You may acknowledge different labeling words used in your family, but it's important that youth learn the correct biological names for body parts. Knowing the correct biological names of body parts has been shown to reduce the risk of sexual abuse. You also will need to discuss private spaces, such as a home bathroom or a bedroom. Public locations such as school, the bus, a store, public restrooms, and the kitchen should also be discussed. Youth will also need to understand which behaviors are private, such as using a toilet, changing clothes, or touching their private body parts. They also need to know public activities such as brushing teeth or washing hands. It is also vital to teach the importance of respecting other people's privacy. To help teach these concepts to concrete learners, you can use illustrations from books or magazines and situations from televisions or movies, as well as everyday occurrences in the community. As your youth brushes his or her teeth, ask if this is a public or private activity. If a youth is changing clothes, ask if it's public or private and whether the bedroom door should be open or closed. Ask if it's okay to show private parts to friends. It is crucial that parents clarify who is allowed to touch which of their child's body parts. Parents also should clarify which body parts their child can touch on others. Youth require this information to keep themselves safe. It also helps them avoid abusing or exploiting others and to avoid acting in an inappropriate way. To be able to accomplish this goal requires comprehension of the individual components, such as body parts, locations, behavior, and touch. For youth who are concrete learners, these concepts can be difficult to master because the guidelines may be different for home and school. Discerning the difference between public and private may also prove difficult for youth who require assistance with personal care tasks. With this in mind, it is best to begin conversations with your child about public and private as early as possible. Even a young child can be taught, for example, that a bathroom is a private place. Like their peers without disabilities, youth with disabilities should master personal hygiene and self-care tasks. Dressing is an important area to focus on. This includes selecting their clothes and dressing themselves. Another skill needed is to be able to use the toilet and properly clean up after themselves. It is also important to teach grooming skills. This includes things like showering and bathing by themselves, washing their hands and faces, taking care of their hair and nails, using deodorant, and shaving. Many youth will be aware and self-sufficient in the areas of personal hygiene. Youth with disabilities, however, may be somewhat delayed in accomplishing these tasks alone or with minimal assistance. Abstract concepts and the many steps involved with some self-care tasks can be tricky for some youth to master. With the appropriate information and opportunities to practice, youth can learn to perform some or all of these tasks or direct someone else to assist with them. You can decrease the risk of child abuse and exploitation by helping your child to become as self-reliable as possible. Managing tasks independently or learning how to direct others who are performing them can also increase a youth's self-esteem and self-confidence. It is also a sign to youth, like their peers, they are growing up and maturing. David Heinsberger, in his book Eye Openers, Parents Ask Questions About Sexuality with Children with Developmental Disabilities, describes key elements of modeling that can help your child begin to understand the difference between necessary intimate care and exploitative touch. The first step involves getting permission. Before you provide assistance with any hygiene, grooming, or dressing routine, always ask for permission using a soft, non-threatening voice. Second, describe what you are doing throughout the process. Third, encourage your child to participate in the process as much as possible. If your child receives assistance with intimate care at school, ask the school care providers to follow these same guidelines. In addition to the self-care tasks discussed previously, parents need to help their daughter prepare for and also manage her monthly menstrual cycles. Parents should consider talking to their daughter about menstruation before it occurs. Explain what will happen and why using very clear, concrete language and examples. Consider the way your daughter best learns new information. Girls who are concrete learners may require several discussions, demonstrations, and reassurances. You can incorporate the idea that your daughter is growing up just like her older sister, aunt, cousin, or mother. You can also associate the changing of pads and tampons with natural breaks in the school and workday. Doing so may help them to make the concept of when to change more concrete. Girls may also benefit from illustrations of how to use and change a pad in addition to actually practicing how to use one. Girls who struggle with sequencing may find it helpful to have a step-by-step visual guide to carry with them until they can master each of their steps in the proper order themselves. Making girls an active participant in the preparation provides a great opportunity to become involved with their own self-care and self-determination skills. Girls can accompany a parent or a care provider to the store to research options and select a few different products to try. Since menstruation cycles can be variable in the first few years, girls can be empowered to understand their own flow and cycles by using a monthly chart. Another option is to create a period kit. After selecting a container she likes, a girl can choose products she'd like to put in it. Items can include pads, tampons, pain relief products, and a step-by-step guide to using and changing a pad or a tampon. Boys need preparation for the physical changes that accompany puberty just as girls do. They need to understand that these changes are a normal part of puberty and are a sign of growing up. You can help your youth prepare for a variety of emotions along with advice about how to talk about and manage their feelings. Parents may want to consider beginning the discussion by their son's 11th birthday. While these discussions may be difficult, they are another step towards healthy adulthood. Incorporate the idea that your son is growing up just like his older brother, uncle, cousin, or father. Although it may seem uncomfortable, boys need to review plans for what to do if they have an erection at school or in public. Strategies include the strategic placement of a book, waiting until everyone else leaves, or crossing their legs if they are sitting down. It is also a good idea to discuss how to manage the results of wet dreams, both at home and away. It is important for adolescent boys who are working on their toileting skills to understand that wet dreams are normal and not a step backwards in their bladder control. The discussion of masturbation or self-touching can be a very difficult subject. Youth need to understand that self-touching is never an appropriate public behavior. There can be serious consequences for both children and youth for self-touching in public. As a youth approaches adolescence, clear guidelines that support your family's values and a youth's normal needs and desires should be developed. In our society, there are no areas outside of private living spaces where self-touch is acceptable, and these concepts need to be reinforced with your child. If your child does engage in self-touching in public, you may need to redirect them to another activity and continue to reinforce the idea that self-touching is a private behavior. Understanding why new self-care tasks are necessary and also mastering the multiple steps of some self-care tasks can be difficult for youth who are concrete learners. Parents can use the tools listed on the screen to provide context and help your youth understand how and why new personal hygiene is needed. With practice, parents can use the tools to help their youth develop the skills to carry out personal care tasks or direct those who assist them. We will review 3 teaching tools you can use to teach these skills, including task analysis, parallel talk, and storyboards. If toothbrushing, taking a shower, or performing other self-care tasks is too complicated for your youth, try breaking the activities into smaller steps in the order they should happen. This method is called task analysis. The example shown highlights the steps involved with brushing your teeth. You will notice that it's broken down into very little steps. This level of detail is needed for some youth to understand the task. Have your child repeat the steps until he or she has learned the task. As a parent myself, I have found this method to be especially helpful for teaching my child new routines in our home. I write down the instructions, laminate it, and then post it on the wall. As my child accomplishes each step, I have him cross out that item from the list with a dry erase marker. Your child may be better able to perform self-care tasks if he or she understands why they are important. Parallel talk, which is discussing with your child what you are doing while you are doing it, teaches the skill and gives the task some real-life context. Here is an example that discusses the use of deodorant. Quote, armpit odor usually begins when you become a teenager and gets a little stronger as you become an adult. People use deodorant to be sure they don't smell bad. People usually put on deodorant in the morning after they've taken a shower. You apply the deodorant to your armpit because that's one of the places that you sweat the most, and sweat can lead to odor. End quote. Parallel talk is a great tool that you can use anytime you want to teach your child a new skill. Like task analysis, storyboards also teach self-care activities by breaking them into smaller, more manageable steps. Instead of words, however, a storyboard uses pictures, drawings, or even symbols. You can also illustrate storyboards with pictures you have taken in your own home. The examples you are seeing uses clip art to demonstrate the steps of brushing your teeth. Social skills are life skills that affect all of our relationships with family, peers, teachers, employees, and people in the community. To be accepted by society, youth need to acquire and appropriately use adult social skills. The acquisition of social skills can be affected by a disability. Helping your child master personal care tasks and social skills begins with laying a foundation in childhood and building upon it as the tasks and skills become more complex. The skills needed for elementary school youth, with its focus on group friendships, are different from the skills needed for adolescent relationships, where youth typically develop regular and best friends focused on shared interests. Another crucial part of becoming an adult is learning how to act in a socially and sexually appropriate way as defined by society and culture. Social norms become more abstract as a child matures and may be difficult for some youth with disabilities to understand. Acquiring these social skills is a complex process that consists primarily of watching, listening, and interacting with others while learning about the verbal and nonverbal communications such as body language, facial expressions, and tone of voice. For many people, this is a natural process. For others, though, it may require careful and systematic training. You may find it beneficial to discuss social skills needed with your child's IEP team. Social skill development goals can be included in a child's Individualized Educational Program, or IEP. Your IEP team can discuss possible ways to help support your child's social development. Children and youth with disabilities often struggle with the development of social skills. One important skill to learn is to be able to identify and interpret what others want. Youth with learning disabilities or autism may have difficulty interpreting verbal and nonverbal cues of others. They may have difficulty understanding what someone has told them or noticing and interpreting facial and body expressions. Youth with intellectual disabilities may also struggle with identifying and appropriately expressing their feelings. Young people with disabilities may be less able than their peers to figure out how to behave in social situations and are less aware of how others respond to them. They can act without understanding potential social consequences and are often unaware of their role in misunderstandings, perceiving themselves as the victims of others. In addition, youth who are not included with their peers for at least part of the school day miss an opportunity to practice and acquire these social skills. Youth who do not communicate with spoken language may also be at a disadvantage for forming and maintaining close friendships with their peers who are not able to communicate with them. Later, we will give you some practical tools you can use to help support your child's social skill development. All youth need information and skills to maintain their personal safety, avoid being abused, and avoid abusing and exploiting others. Living with a disability exposes a youth to an increased risk of exploitation. If a child has not been taught the foundations of safety skills, puberty is a great time to begin. Developing personal safety skills begins with a child knowing appropriate names of all body parts and understanding that their body belongs to them and they can decide who can touch them. Discussions about appropriate touch should include skill development around who can touch them and where they may touch other people. They should understand, for example, where a nurse can touch them and where they can touch others on a setting like the school bus. Youth also need to know that they have a right to say no to any touches or behavior that hurt them or make them feel uncomfortable. This applies no matter the source, including parents, care providers, professionals, friends, or even intimate partners. Parents of children who use sign language will need to ensure that their child learns the appropriate signs they need for preventing and reporting exploitation and inappropriate touch. Children who use assistive technology devices will also need to have the appropriate language and/or symbols added to their communication devices. Youth need to develop these skills that will help them decide if a situation is unsafe and know what to do if it is. They should know how they will leave and whom they should tell. It's very important that youth know that bad touch should never be kept a secret. They can and should report inappropriate or uncomfortable touches to specific trusted adults. Those trusted adults should assure that youth will be believed when they report it. Youth also need to understand that if someone does touch them inappropriately, it is never their fault. Making sense of appropriate social interactions and boundaries can be difficult for people who are concrete learners and do not think abstractly or struggle with reading nonverbal social situations. The tools discussed in this next section are examples of some of the approaches you can take to help your son or daughter develop their social skills. Social skills stories help children understand events and expectations. The stories clearly identify the topic and who is involved. They indicate where and when a situation occurs. They describe what is happening. They can help explain how it happens and help clarify the rationale behind what people think, say, or do in a given situation. Social stories should also celebrate what a child does well. Repeated readings of social skills stories will reinforce lessons and help your child put them into practice. You can write your own social stories based off skills you would like to work on, or you can purchase books that contain pre-made stories in them. Your child's teacher should also be able to help you develop appropriate social skills stories and reinforce them in school. Here is an example of a social story called, "It's Okay to Look at Girls." Quote, "There are lots of girls at school. Sometimes I see girls in my classroom. Sometimes I see girls in the hallway. Sometimes I see girls at prep rallies, and sometimes I see girls at recess. It's okay to look at girls, but when I look at a girl for a long time, she may get mad or sad. When I look at a girl, I will count slowly to 2, and then I'll try to look at something else. I should try to look at something else until I slowly count to 10. After I slowly count to 10, I can look at that girl again if I want to." End quote. As you can see, a social story can be based off just about anything. Social stories are easy to create and can be a helpful tool for many situations. Learning about personal space and appropriate intimacy is an essential skill for all people. For children with disabilities, a tool called a boundary circle chart can make these abstract concepts more concrete. The chart is a series of concentric circles that help youth understand how to safely and appropriately interact with different categories of people, such as family members, caregivers, acquaintances, and strangers. The small circle in the center of the chart represents your child, alone and in privacy. The next ring represents immediate family members and others with whom your child shares a close, loving relationship. Successive rings represent people who have increasingly less personal relationships with your child. One helpful suggestion is to consider making each ring a different color. This helps your child to recognize the different levels. You may also include pictures or names of specific people within each ring. As you identify the people in each circle, discuss what actions and greetings would be appropriate. Who is it okay to hug or touch? Who can hug or touch your child? This is a good time to review appropriate touch and public and private parts of the body. If your child or youth receives assistance with personal care, you may want to make one ring just for paid caregivers such as personal care assistants or home care nurses. Be sure to talk about what tasks are appropriate for these people to do and what your child should do if he or she has a concern. Role-playing is another great tool that gives youth an opportunity to practice what they would say and do in various situations. Generally done with another person, it helps the child to think about, anticipate, and develop an alternative plan when something unexpected occurs. You can use role-playing to suggest more appropriate alternative behaviors for use in any problematic situation. If you are concerned about your son's behavior, when he doesn't get picked for a team in gym class, for example, suggest role-playing to help your teen know what to do if a situation such as this arises. Role-playing can be a very spontaneous way of making the most of all kinds of teachable moments as they arise. You can create as many scenarios as you find helpful. Here is one possible example. Your son likes to play video games. An online friend he plays games with but knows only through the internet asks to meet up with him at a nearby mall. What should he do? You would then discuss with your child what is appropriate to do. In this case, you would discuss how it's never okay to meet up with someone you have never met before. Another great tool to consider is the use of a 5-point scale. Most behaviors exist on a continuum from mild to extreme. By using a 5-point scale, you can help your child understand degrees of behavior, social boundaries, and unintended consequences of going too far. The scale is easily adapted to any issue. It could, for example, be used to help your youth rate his anger levels and behaviors such as appropriate and inappropriate touching. A student who always uses a loud voice, for example, could be taught that his loudest voice is a 5 and being quiet is a 1. Using a 2 or 3 level voice is the most appropriate for use in the house or classroom. For more information on this, you can visit 5pointscale.com, a website by the people who developed this concept. Whether someone is learning to dance, play music, or develop a social skill, practice is the key to improvement. By creating real-life opportunities for youth to interact with peers and community members, you open the door to social success. The more opportunities your child has to practice social skills, the more polished they will become. Social skill training generally consists of 5 steps. Number 1, introduce the new skill and its context for use. Explain the skill and how it will be used. Number 2, model it for your child. Demonstrate for them what you want them to do and make sure you are very detailed. Number 3, have your child model it back to you. Have them practice with you what they will do. Number 4, have your child practice the skill at home and at school and in the community. Practice is critical for your child to learn a new skill. Lastly, Always get feedback from your child about how it went. Ask them what they need to do different to make the skill more effective next time. Following these steps can be a tool to help your child learn more appropriate social skills. Helping a child prepare for puberty and adolescence consists of many conversations and practice sessions. Developing a strategy guide can be helpful to begin considering what information you already possess and what you still need and where you'll find additional information. Youth need information in a timely manner to avoid situations such as an unprepared daughter getting her first period at school or an uninformed son being sent home from school for inappropriate touching. Parents can decide who will gather resources, what information should be shared at each developmental stage, and how family beliefs, values, and cultures will be incorporated. Two helpful tools for starting discussions are to become an askable parent and to use teachable moments. Being an askable parent means that your child considers you to be approachable and open to questions, even the difficult and uncomfortable ones. Parents take the initiative by asking open-ended questions and then truly listening to their child's responses, not judging, and also engaging in a two-way communication that supports a child's learning. Teachable moments means using situations that arise in daily life or in the media to teach youth appropriate social skills. Examples include discussing interactions between characters on a television show or talking about menstruation products when walking down that aisle in the store. As a parent, you can begin to lay the groundwork for adolescence and childhood by teaching the names of body parts and discussing the difference between public and private places, body parts, and behaviors. You then continue to build upon this foundation at each developmental stage. One thing you will want to teach is the concept of increased modesty. During pre-adolescence, children generally become more modest. It is also important that you consider modesty for children who have personal care support. One way to do this is by telling the child what they are going to do, why they are going to do it, and how they will touch him or her, and whether they have the child's permission to continue. Personal care assistants can also ask a child how he or she wants to be assisted. This process helps your child build the life skills of developing self-determination, setting personal boundaries, and maintaining safety. Teaching by parents at this age should also include hugging boundaries. Parents can use their cultural guidelines for appropriate adolescent hugging to help their youth understand who they should and should not be hugging and who can and cannot hug them. Youth also need information on what changes they should expect with puberty and the accompanying changes in self-care and personal hygiene. Youth who receive assistance through self-care should continue to work on their ability to either master these skills themselves or become proficient at directing others who provide that care. It is also important that your child has age-appropriate information about sex. Interactions with peers about puberty and sex can leave youth with many misconceptions. Parents can dispel these myths by providing accurate information in an age-appropriate format that takes into account your child's disability. During normal adolescent development, youth continue to mature physically and emotionally. Parents can add depth and complexity to information and skills they have already acquired. Be sure to give plenty of opportunities to practice the necessary skills in as many different settings as is appropriate. Youth also need the context of their family's values, beliefs, and culture incorporated into this skill development. Youth may be less likely to ask parents questions at this stage in their development. Parents, however, can continue to be askable and use teachable moments to keep providing information on a routine basis. Some parents find it helpful to identify another trusted adult with whom a youth can discuss a personal concern. This person might be an aunt, an uncle, an older sibling, or a doctor. Continue to reinforce concepts that you have previously started teaching, including physical development, public and private behaviors, and appropriate adult behaviors. Be sure to also discuss other issues youth may face, including things like drugs, drinking, pregnancy, and sexually transmitted diseases. Even youth who do not engage in these activities are exposed to it through media such as TV, music, and the internet. It is vital to discuss these issues with your youth so that they are prepared to encounter these issues. As a parent, One of the most important things you can do for your child is to prepare them for puberty and adult life. This information is essential for skill development and to help your youth keep themselves safe. Sadly, there are many risks associated with the lack of information and skill development. Our children with disabilities are at an increased risk for sexual abuse. One report by ARC states that youth with disabilities are sexually abused 2.2 times more often than their non-disabled peers. Sadly, people living with a disability generally know the person who abuses or exploits them. Sexual abuse among women with disabilities is especially prevalent. One study by Gildry, done in 2001, states that 68 to 83% of women with an intellectual disability have been sexually assaulted within their lifetime. In some cases, a lack of information may also lead some youth with disabilities to become the sexual offenders themselves, simply because they do not understand sexually appropriate behavior. Ensuring that youth have accurate information about their bodies and developing appropriate social skills will help them maintain their personal safety. It will also reinforce their self-determination and help them act like the adults they are becoming. This quote is from Terry Cohenhoven, a professional sexuality educator and mother of 2 daughters. It succinctly explains why youth need to learn personal care tasks and acquire adult social skills. Quote, "People at the greatest risk for exploitation are those who are insulated, protected, or sheltered from what could happen. Skill development and information are powerful tools." End quote. Simply by listening to this presentation, you are taking the first step as a parent to protect your child from exploitation. Keep in mind, however, that there is no way to completely prevent sexual abuse. If you find that your child has been sexually abused, please be aware that there are many resources available to help. Preparing your child for the changes of puberty and adolescence can seem overwhelming. You do not, however, have to accomplish this alone. There are many resources available to you. Resources include the Utah Parent Center, disability-specific organizations, independent living centers, school personnel, and other community programs. The Utah Parent Center offers many resources on this topic, including recommended readings, handouts, references, and much more. To access the Utah Parent Center's additional resources and handout packet for this video, please visit www.utahparentcenter.org. Thank you for your time and attention to this important topic. We hope that this video has given you some ideas on how to help your child through the journey to adulthood. This is a wonderful time for growth as your child gains independence and also learns skills to help them be a successful adult. As always, if you have questions about this video, please contact the Utah Parent Center by visiting our website or calling us directly. Thank you again and enjoy the journey.